This is Axis and Allies on the 2 or less channel. We're going to play some D-Day with house rule, or 3. Reason being, there is a imbalance that often is spoken about on pages and forums and whatever. The Germans, they win a little bit too easily, too often. I don't mind it. I quite enjoy an easy game once in a while. It is a fast moving, faster finish game, but sometimes it can feel a little bit underwhelming. Saint-Lô is the sticking point. It seems that at the end of the game, the Allied forces are smashing their way down through northern France, down to Saint-Lô, and all that the Germans do is have maybe half a dozen units in adjacent regions. They move them in right at the very end, and because the Allied can't smash them on that 9th turn, one little lonely German guy with his uniform in tatters and blood pouring down his face, he just says, well, I've won then, haven't I? It seems a bit underwhelming. So, to redress the balance, I've got these 3 little things. First one tips the flavour way. Tips the favour. The first one tips the balance way in favour of the Allied, and that is to give them an extra turn, an 11th turn in which to win the game. Now, because there's usually way too many Allied and this one lonely German left there in Saint-Lô, that game would become a romp for the Allied. So swing it back the other way. On the Allied reinforcement, not for the Axis, just the Allied, take the first unit away from each line of their reinforcements. Replace them with a marker chip, a place marker chip. That puts the Allies 11 units down. That's getting on for 8 or 9% of their units. That's a chunk. When you come to the reinforcement roll, just for the Allied, if you say roll a 6 on the first go, you only take the 5 units. You take the place marker chip and 5 units, and you continue down the board that way. Keep the chips in place until they're removed. Otherwise, you might lose where you are when you wrap around. And you know what I mean. I think I know what I mean as well. The other thing that I do is I allow the Allied naval bombardment to target 3 of their 6 dice against German land units in regions that had or have a blockhouse, but only rural regions. So you can't target Cherbourg. That would make it too easy. Cherbourg would just be awash with naval bombardments. And there can't be any friendly forces in that region either. It's just a little tweak which I think adds a little bit to it. I've played this game several times with this balancey tweak. It does seem to still give you that Hollywood finish, but it means that the Germans can be more aggressive at the start of the game. The Allied have to think a little bit more carefully about where they place the units and how much they commit to Cherbourg. Obviously 11 units down, committing to Cherbourg on the north side of the north end of the map, they often haven't got enough time to run back down to Saint-Lô and support things. So it makes it very much more interesting. Obviously, half a dozen playthroughs of a playtest is never enough to tell you this is the only one you're ever going to do. No. So give it a go. Let me know how you get on with it as well. I'll just show you one little thing that I do on the battle board that nobody uses. and then we get on and have a little play of it. I may not show you all the turns, every turn. We see how exciting it gets, and I can promise you that whatever happens with this playthrough, I'll show you the result. It's not going to be tweaked. It is how it is. Let me just show you the battle board. 1 second. Okay, here's the battle board that nobody uses because everyone remembers. And down the side here is the card order, which means you haven't got to flip your cards over. I still do use the cards because I'm like that. I've even got, actually, I made myself a turn card to tell me to move the turn button, because I keep forgetting to do that sometimes because I am stupid. But when you try and read the turn cards and trying to see the information, it tells you whether it's at 1 or less, or 2 or less, or 3 or less. It can get a little bit tedious. So a set of dice down here tells you naval bombardment is at 2 or less. Anti-aircraft attack fighters at 1s. Bombers attacking at 3. These 6s are obviously the Axis and Allies attacks, which happen at various numbers, so it's not 6 or less. If it was, the game would be really stupid. But red dice for Allies, black dice for Axis, you get the drift. That helps me just to play the game. It might help you a little bit too. Let's get a turn done, and then we see where we are. Okie dokes, we are at the start of round 3. Round 2 is all completed. I'll just nip you back in time, zip, 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 and over to the reinforcement chart, just to show you what happened in the first round of reinforcement. Ignore the fact that there's a gap here. I've reloaded this just to show you. On the first UK reinforcement, they rolled a 7. So it took off the first chip. That's a unit no longer in the game. They took the next 4 units. They took that as number 6 and this unit as number 7. The rest of the units would have carried on in round 2 reinforcement, but it meant that the UK, instead of having 7 units, ended up with just 5. That's the way that reinforcement rule now works. In terms of the game itself and the quite spectacular fighting but poor reinforcement rolls, as you may be able to see, Germany have got quite a few units on the Rene side and still left to come on, and Rouen has finally managed to catch up a little bit with the second reinforcement, bringing in loads of tanks and infantry. The Americans have had a poor roll. They can't get units onto the beach. So what it's meant is that the Cherbourg region is still well stacked up with Germans. There's been a small amount of movement, but the Americans put their fighters up there on the first round just to quell any movement back into Cherbourg. But the Americans took some heavy hitting on Utah Beach. They've had a problem getting their reinforcements in place, especially as one of the artillery units has turned over on the boat. That's going to be flooded now. They'll have to get the sponges out before they can fire again. There is the blockhouses situation. Blockhouses have gone from most of the central beach areas. Certainly the Omaha, Gold and Juno and Sword are all but bereft of blockhouses. Some of that has come from naval bombardment, some of it has come from the ground attacks. Either way, Omaha Beach Landing looks to be on course to make their way towards St-Lo at any point in the near future. As far as the Germans are concerned, well, they've rolled pretty poorly as well. They're short of units coming forward, despite the fact that they don't have the same restriction of the ones being placed on the reinforcement board. They did, however, get their 5 tanks, which they placed over here in Rouen. Unfortunately, en route A couple of them were taken down by some patrolling British fighters. The only other thing to sort of say, I think, is that I've left some of these artillery units, as I like to do, on reinforcement zones. It does give you a certain amount of cover. There's some more down here. So when you start loading units on, you've got a chance of there being no fighters patrolling, or if the fighters come over, we have a pop at them before they can have a pop at us. Other than that, I think I shall see you somewhere round 3, round 4. Be good. Middle of turn 3, plenty of things happening, so I figured let's bring you in on the action too. As you can see down here, the fighter patrols have formed a ring around the German units. They're not letting them out too easily. They don't want to get themselves over the anti-aircraft fire that could take them down, so they're playing a bit of chicken. Let's see how that works out for them. Of the 5 battle flags, which I often use to remind me where the battles are, 4 of them are on the board. Let's go and deal with them one at a time. Here, in Utah Beach, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 American infantry. Brave lads from the US 4th Infantry Division. 6 dice, they're all going in at 1. And they roll 2 ones. Brilliant. That's 2 hits off the Germans. In reply, they're going to have 3 at 2. And they get no hits. So that's a good result for the Allied forces there. 2 Germans already off the board. We'll move ourselves down, if we can swing the camera around, to Omaha Beach, where the 29th and 1st Infantry Divisions are going to have a little pop, with 3 artillery and 3 infantry versus 2 infantry and a tank. 3 artillery, 3 dice, 3 infantry on there, so it's 2s and 1s, and they get just the 1 hit from one of our artillery units, taking out a German artillery themselves. So Germany, their tanks defend at 3 and their 2 artillery defend at 2. We have got just the 1 hit. This is a good round for the Allied forces. Footsteps in the background. Little pitter patter is my dog Poppet. Hello baby. Let's move the camera around to the big one. Here in Caen, 4 infantry, all rolling at once. What can the Brits do there? Nothing at all. 2 artillery will roll at 2, and 2 tanks will roll at 3 in attack. And we've got 4 hits. Oh, just there. Marvellous. Let's, well, I wasn't expecting that at all. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's overkill. Really wasn't expecting that. In reply, the Germans, 4 tanks will defend at 3. We'll roll them. Ah, oh, man alive. These dice are hot. 3 hits. And they will also have 2 artillery and a man. And they get 1 more hit. So that's 4 off the Brits. In total, all those infantry are gone. All these German units are gone. The last small attack, Auberville. 3 at 1 for the Brits in attack. No hits. Blockhouse defends at 1, doesn't get a hit. And the infantry and the artillery for the Germans defend at 2, and they get a hit. So one of the guys is lost. We salute you, fallen soldier. That's pretty much it for this update. I suspect that the German reply isn't going to be too strong, being as though it's just the tank attacks really here that's going to do much in the way of damage. Probably see you in round 4. Till then, be good. Okay, we're at the start of turn 4, and I thought I'd do a quick rhyme or reason type of video here, just to explain my thinking behind the positioning of these Allied fighters. Now, I could have put them, the two British guys that are here and the one British guy here, in the reinforcement zones. Obviously, these two being stacked with artillery, they're going to be having a few pot shots at the British planes. The other reinforcement zone here, well, that's free. Why would I put the fighters there if they're just going to load up their units in these areas? Why would I put my fighters at risk here? Well, you've got to risk it somewhere. These tanks are going to want to move. We're going to get a shot with that plane at them, we hope. These tanks are possibly going to load into Caen to try to reinforce it, or they're going to go this way into Saint-Lô. So putting one fighter here, I think, is not too bad a choice. The other two fighters in Caen are defending against these guys coming in, and the tanks possibly trying to move out. Can't see any reason why they would do that. Over in Saint-Lô, the Americans have put all their eggs into one basket, 4 planes into there. There is only 5 units in there. I don't think the German tanks are going to ship themselves back into Saint-Lô. They might just form a forward defensive line. That's the reason why. We'll see how it plays out. A lot of it will be affected on the turn of the next card, which is rolling 1 dice for each artillery in the region containing Allied fighters. So, in Saint-Lô, there are 2 artillery and 4 fighters, so they get 2 dice trying hitting at 1. And one of the American planes goes. Ooh, that wasn't quite on the cards. The other fighter is down here. There's 3 artillery against this one plucky Brit who survives, nicely dodging around the anti-aircraft shells. To some degree, the Allied fighter placement has worked. We see how it pans out for later on in this game. Obviously, units are now starting to come through from Omaha Beach. The Mulberry Harbour has already been built by the Allied, and we're starting to ship more and more units now down south towards what is usually the important target city. Naval bombardment on this turn did take out the blockhouses in Cherbourg. That's going to help out the Allies quite a lot. They've got plenty of infantry there. They haven't got enough in the way of armour. That's going to be their next objective, I think. We'll see what happens later on in the round. We are now at the end of that turn 4. I thought I'd show you what transpired from that placement of aircraft. It did prevent the Germans from loading units into where they wanted to go, more notably in Saint-Lô. The Americans have lost a fighter. Germans can now advance forward and surround Saint-Lô. They can't really afford to move in just yet. But Caen has been majorly hit. 3 German tank units have been lost. Britain lost 2 infantry units in the process. But on the reinforcement phase, the Germans, hooray, finally got a good roll, and Rommel was able to put in the remaining units from the Rouen-Chateau side of the reinforcement table. So what you see now is what you get down here. Cherbourg looks to be crumbling. There's a lot of infantry up there from America coming through. I think actually in the whole Operation Overlord, when the re-invasion took place of the French mainland, Cherbourg didn't fall until way into July. There was a stubborn garrison hanging on in Cherbourg, and the actual outer perimeter of the town itself took 5 days of heavy battering, and until they got some heavy bombers involved, and that soon sorted things out. The Mulberry Harbours have now been complete. Omaha Beach and Gold Beach are filling up. I thought best to bring the British troops in on Gold Beach. I think there's enough units here. If not, we can divert a few going back across to reinforce Caen. But it looks as if the Germans have given up on that particular side of the battle now. Here we are at the start of the 5th turn now, and as you can see, there are no blockhouses anywhere on this northern coast. Right over on the western side there's one blockhouse left. We can probably do away with that card. The battle at Caen seems to be as good as all over Red Rover. The German reinforcements coming in down the south appear to be pointing this way. I don't think it's a cunning plan. That's the way they're heading. Saint-Lô is going to be the major city for the attack. The British have been loading their aircraft on the east side of Saint-Lô. The Americans on the west side of Saint-Lô. Their patrols will hopefully slow down this German advance towards defending this very important city within the game. Over on Cherbourg, 1 second and we'll fly that way. That was an authentic plane noise, by the way, honestly. Over here in Cherbourg, the 101st and the 82nd have met up with the 4th Infantry Division, who have loaded in from Utah Beach. There hasn't been a tremendous amount of action up here of late. The 6th Infantry guys have just been, well, feet up, supping a cup of joe, waiting for the artillery to arrive. It has now arrived. Combined with that, their good fortune is the naval bombardment has managed to clear out the German units at St. Pierre-en-Église. I hope I pronounced that half near correctly. So, next time we speak, it will be after the Axis and Allies have moved, and there'll be battles to report upon. Middle of turn 5, newsflash. We weren't going to speak again until after the battles have taken place, but there's 4 flags on the board. And if you flag it, you fight it. There's too much to sort of get done now. I'm bound to forget. The bombers, on their bomber strike, finally managed to hit something. Hooray! That's the first unit they've taken out, I believe, which is one of the artillery that was left up in Cherbourg. We're going to start off down here in Thorn, or Molt, which is probably nearer to how you're supposed to say it. They could both be entirely wrong. We have 2 British tanks attacking at 3, who both miss, and an infantry attacking at 1. He misses. Oh my god, what can the 3 German artillery do in reply? They can take out the British infantry. Oh dear, that didn't go to plan. Move the flag. Over in Caen itself, the British have moved some units back into Caen and some around that side to help out. Probably the right move to make. 2 tanks rolling at 3. Both of them missed. My tank's useless today. 3 artillery at 2. 1 hit and 2 infantry at 1. Both rolls 6s. So one of the Germans gets to be moved from there. Those 2 defend at 2 before they go, and they get 1 hit as well. So that's the mini battle down here. Shift cameras around to the borders of Saint-Lô, where the Americans have made a slightly surprising move. The artillery that was there have met up with the British that were over here from Balleroy, and they are attacking here in Clermont. It's something French. I'm so sorry. And we have 3 artillery attacking at 2 and 5 infantry attacking at 1. Let me just balance this camera and roll it for you. So the 3 artillery at 2 gets 2 hits. This is good for the Brits, yeah? And 5 infantry, grab 5 dice, all going in at once, and they all miss, but only by a shade. So the Germans in reply are rolling the 2 panzers at 3. They both miss, and that 1 infantryman that was there, he misses as well. That's a good result for the Brits and the Americans that were there. Mustn't forget them. They did help out. In fact, they were the only ones that actually managed to hit anything. We'll fly over to Cherbourg, or just south of, where the combined infantry of the 4th Division and the 2 airbornes have met up and are going to have a bash at those Germans up there. Just 1 tank and 1 artillery to take out. They have 1 tank in the south, fires at 3 and gets a hit, and the 2 artillery units that are there, they both miss. So can the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 infantry do any better? They can. So both Germans are lost from here. They get to reply at 3 and at 2. I'll roll the 2 dice together. One's black, one's white. Snake eyes. 2 Americans are lost. The reason why I wanted to show this, and I'm knocking everything for 6, me and my fat fingers. The reason why I wanted to show this in particular is because the Americans had made a decision that they had enough units up here in Cherbourg already to take care of that, and have started moving the reinforcements from Omaha Beach, Dune South, to have a pop at Saint-Lô. I'll roll the German reply on their turn in a couple of cards time, and get back to you with an end of round report later. End of turn 5, start of turn 6. There's a slash somewhere in the middle of that. Saint-Lô is now surrounded by Germans. They are pushing their way forward as fast as they can. The Allied airstrikes have been devastating throughout the game. So far, the Allied have only lost 1 fighter plane from each of the 2 powers. In return, on the last go, Germany have lost 3 artillery trying to move into Saint-Lô, 2 artillery and a tank in a battle outside of Saint-Lô, and 1 more artillery trying to move in reinforcements. The Brits have lost just 3 infantry. It hasn't been a good turn for the Germans. It's been especially good for the Allies. So Caen is done, all bar 2 units. Saint-Lô is the main focus now. This is when it starts to bite. This is where those 11 units less really start to matter. If the Allies had had all those extra units, Cherbourg would have been done by now. Units would be pouring down south. But they've taken their time. They've made strategic choices to hold on until they were strong enough to attack Cherbourg. And now everything's going into an about face. There's 4 guys left in Cherbourg. There'll be no problem at all. Everything can now start concentrating on Saint-Lô, as well as leaving just enough units in Caen, because you do not want that sucker punch. I shall see you sometime in turn 6 proper. Turn 6 is done, so is Caen, and so is a good portion of the Allied aircraft. The artillery finally started hitting planes in the sky. That's going to blunt the Allies' chances to restrict the German movement, although there's plenty of Germans here now. Cherbourg is still alive. There was a bang and a whimper, and the result really is just 2 Americans lost their lives, and so did 2 Germans. That will be done sometime soon, we hope. Down in Caumont, another bang and a whimper. All those German tanks, all the artillery against the Brits and the American artillery. The Brits lost 1 guy, the Germans lost more than 1 guy. Here's the casualties. It wasn't a balanced fight, shall we say. However, we are at the stage of WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. No more reinforcements to come, so we now have to face out the final battles from turn 7 onwards to see if the Allied can snatch victory. Middle of round 7 and the big squeeze is on. Not in Cherbourg. The 1 tank, 2 artillery, 2 infantry still can't wring the last bit of life out of those Germans up there. They weren't going to come. They weren't going to go quietly. and the Americans weren't going to come down to Saint-Lô to aid that attack anytime soon anyhow. So it's not too bad a situation. There's a British fighter patrolling on one side and on the other side, whilst the Americans have concentrated their fighter efforts in Saint-Lô. It's a attacking defensive move or something, I'm sure an expert could probably tell me. On a rough piece count, there's approximately 35 to 40 Germans and 40-45 Allied. The Germans, however, with their panzers defending at 3, may have a slight advantage at this stage. I'm going to roll this out. Let's see what happens. So the battle at Caumont, which is a British tank that rolls at 3 and misses, 4 artillery that roll at 2 and get 1 hit, and the 3 infantry guys. Oh, they got hit too. Well done, guys. That would be 2 off of the Germans that are there. Probably the 2 anti-aircraft, I think, or artillery units. Maybe Butterfingers. German reply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks at 3, because those panzers are good. We like panzers. 5 at 3. Oh, 3 hits. Nice. Plus 2 of the artillery, and they both miss. So 3 off the Brits is the best ones to take. I'll reset the camera for Saint-Lô and see you there. In Saint-Lô, we have 3 American artillery which roll at 2, and they get a hit. We take off 1 German infantry. The 4 remaining infantry units are going to roll at 1s, and they don't get anything. Okay, slightly under-rolled there. For the reply from the Germans, the good old panzers, at 3 misses. It has the 4 infantry, one we've already removed. They go at 1. 2 hits. Oh, nice. And 3 artillery rolling at 2. Another hit. So, it's 3-1 there was the score. We'll see what happens with the Axis reply later on in a couple of cards' time. Round 7 on the Axis move. The 2 infantry guys that were here have moved this away back towards Com. The British will have to respond to that, possibly with their tanks, maybe with their artillery. We shall have to see. The Air Force have done absolutely nothing. Everybody got free movements. Over in Cherbourg, we'll roll that out. The one lonely German, he's going to roll at 1, doesn't get a hit. The American tank doesn't get a hit. The 2 artillery finally finish him off. Cherbourg has fallen. Bring out the bells, drink some wine, and start the rebuilding process. I'll set the camera up now for Caumont, and we will see how the massive Panzer Division gets on the outskirts of Saint-Lô. This is the Axis reply on their attack and Allied defensive round. 5 panzers at 3. 2 hits. Nice. We take a couple of the Americans off, and the 3 infantry are going to go in at 1s and get no hits. In reply, we have these 2 plus those 2, which is 4 artillery plus the tank, all 5 going at 2s, and they get 2 hits as well. We call that a score draw. The battle in Saint-Lô features 1 German tank, 3 artillery and 4 infantry. They have withheld their tanks coming in down here from Percy. The Germans are going to hold them off for as late as they can for that nice big final round punch to try and grab the victory. 1 panzer tank at 3 gets a hit. 3 artillery at 2s. 2 hits, that's 3 in total so far. Plus the 4 infantry at 1s, they get a hit. Wow. before we wipe the Americans off the board there, their 3 artillery and 1 infantry all reply at 2s, and they get 2 hits. I divvy them up. I'll see you later on. It's time for the round 8 battles. The British have had to cover those 2 rogue German infantry that are running along the south of the map, so they're going to be 2 artillery short for this final rounds of the battle. In the Common region, I pronounce that differently every time, terribly sorry. We have 3 British tanks firing at 3, and they get 2 hits against the Germans. Oh, this could be decisive. 2 of those move back. We have 2 artillery going at 2s, no hits, but 3 British infantry, they all missed as well. So 2 casualties so far, 5 at 3 in defence for the German panzers. Wow. 4 hits. 4 hits from the 5 tanks. That is decisive. 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought that was good by the Brits. It's even better by the Germans. So, other half of the attack would be over here in Saint-Lô, where the Americans have managed to move 8 units in, 4 artillery and 4 infantry. The artillery are on the black dice, so 4 at 2 plus 4 at 1. And just the 1 hit, 1 infantry unit has made a hit. So, 1 German infantry goes. Their reply will be 1 tank at 3 and 3 artillery at 2. Grab those dice. 1 hit plus the 2 infantry that we have at the start of that round. Snake eyes. That's the end of the battling. I shall set up for the German reply and get back to you. Okay, we're now ready for the Axis reply in their attack phase. I'll start off bizarrely off camera, where we have 2 German infantry versus 2 British artillery. So it's 1 versus 2s, and nobody gets a hit. Okay, we'll leave that one alone. That was handy. In Comont, or one of the pronunciations of it, 3 German panzers plus 2 infantry are making an attack, and the 2 panzers strike. They strike hard. In reply, the British forces there will have 4 at 2, and they get 2 hits as well. It's getting closer. In Saint-Lô, the Germans tried to move 3 units in there, 2 infantry and an artillery, holding back these tanks until to the very end. Unfortunately, those fighter patrols, way too powerful, not a single unit arrived. So, they'll be attacking with 1 panzer at 3, 3 artillery at 2. And they get 3 hits. Ooh. Plus the 1 infantry at the end there. He gets a hit as well. This is heavy. 4 out of there. Wow. The reply from the Americans will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 2. And they get a single hit. This is going down to the wire. I'll load this up ready for round 9 and meet you there. We are at the battle phase of round 9. Ordinarily this game would be close to being called right now because of that rule where you have to hold all 3 cities for 1 round. We're going to need this extra round. It's going to be good. I'll do the off-board one again first with the 2 British artillery having an attack at the 2 Germans that have moved into a region just off camera. I can see it. And they've got 2 hits. So both the Germans are now gone from south of Caen, and their reply took off 1 of the British artillery. they're safe down there. At Caumont, 2 British tanks have now been joined by one of the artillery units. So we have 2 3s and a 2, and they get 1 hit. The 3 German tanks in reply, they get 2 hits. And in Saint-Lô itself, Saint-Lô centre, everybody's pushed in apart from the Germans. Their defensive play has been quite good. I like being defensive with the Germans. It possibly doesn't go with their battle tactics from that time, but it's effective in this game. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Sherman tanks, although 2 of them are Matildas, all rolling at 3s, and I get 2 hits and 3 artillery units that are in there gets a 3rd hit. So all the artillery have now been wiped for now. The German reply is their 1 tank at 3. It misses, and it's 3 artillery at 2s get a single hit. Okay, I'll set this up for the Axis moving in, and they're going to have to move into Saint-Lô, and see you there. With the Axis moving into Saint-Lô on turn 9, the fight is again, well, semi-effective, but the Germans did manage to get in 2 additional tanks and 3 artillery. They've got a chance of holding on to this now. Let's roll it. In Caumont, 2 German tanks at 3 and 1 British tank at 2. And we say goodbye to our British friend there. Saint-Lô, 3 Panzers at 3, that's 3 black dice. 3 artillery at 2, that's 3 white dice. Give them a good roll. 1, 2, 3 hits on the Allied. 1, 2, 3. Their reply is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks and 2 artillery. Roll them separately. The 5 tanks get just the 1 hit, and the 2 artillery that are in there that have been destroyed get no hits. That's important. That's quite telling. Now, this wasn't set up. This wasn't rock and rolled in any way other than this is how the game had played out. And that would be the end of the game, because there's no way that the Allied can now hang on to Saint-Lô for 1 turn. But there is this additional turn, and you can see here just how balanced the forces are that are left. It could have gone completely a different way with dice rolls. Dice rolls are part of the fun in this game, but I often find that because the Allied have to be slightly more reticent and choosy with their battles, it does mean that there are more infantry and artillery and tanks left from the Germans to defend with. It still requires a degree of strategic thinking and planning, and then the luck of the rolls. But I hope that if you try this setup out, you'll find a similar experience to me, that this will need 1 extra round and 1 more bit of brain being applied to it, because applying your brain to anything is always good. I'll set this up for the round 10, and we shall see if the Allied can pull one out of the hat now. Into round 10, no reason that the fighters wouldn't be patrolling there. They unfortunately lost 1 to the artillery. It's going to go one way or t'other. It's down to the wire. Hollywood finished again from this game. Thank you very much to the game for giving us this bit of fun. We're going to have 5 Allied tanks rolling in at 3. Oh my goodness, they've just had 5 hits. 1 second. Oh my God! That I wasn't expecting. They're wiped. They are wiped without the artillery coming in. They, of course, get a reply. 3 German tanks at 3, 2 artilleries at 2. You won't believe that roll. Oh my giddy aunt. Wow. That's 10 dice and 10 hits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My faith in random number generators has been completely restored. We'll take these units off. I need a little sit down after this. So, you know what happens now? Because we have this extra round, I'm not even going to bother turning over the cards because we know the order. Stuff has to try to move in. Everything's going to try and move in. There is this 11th round. If the Germans can move all their units in, we have 2 fighters, and they each try to prevent stuff coming in by rolling at ones. So, 2 rolls of 1 at the first guy. He doesn't get in. 2 rolls at 1 at the second guy. Snake eyes. These dice are hot. This guy gets in. This guy gets in. Thank goodness. These guy, he gets in. 2 tanks, come on. Get in there. So, Germans have a chance. On the Axis reply, I think they've won now because their 2 tanks roll at 3 and miss. Their 3 guys roll at 1. They all miss. The dice have suddenly gone cold again. And the reply from the... Oh, wow. 3 hits from the 3 tanks once again. Those tank commanders, they won a medal. That is the end of the 10th turn. It does mean that once again the Germans have won, because there is that 11th turn that we can give them, but unfortunately, according to the as close as we can play to the out of the box rules, the Allied have to hold this for a complete turn, which is now no longer available. They would have done that on the 11th turn. They would have taken Sanlo and pushed the Germans all the way back to Berlin, those that survived anyway. But it wasn't to be. We still got that Hollywood finish. We still got some fun with those dice. Those at the end there, 10 rolls at 10 hits, absolutely brutal. I'll speak to you on the other camera. Well, there we have it. I can't quite believe what happened at the end there. This is why I love D-Day for the Hollywood finish. This balance house rule seems to add something to the game. I've said so in the commentary a couple of times before that. When I edit it, I find out how many times I repeat myself. I hope you give a go with these rules and let me know in the comments how you've got on and whether you feel I've done something entirely stupid and wrong with it, or if you're having fun with it. What I will do is I shall run a screenshot up here just about now. Click. I'm not that slick. I get a screenshot up here of the rules. So you can take a screenshot yourself and have a copy of those rules to apply that I've been playing with, and try them out for yourself. Finally, last thing to say is I make these videos in aid of the Cure Parkinson's Trust. You will find a link to them just below this video and also in the banner on the channel page. If you have a spare Panzer tank you could send them, I'm sure they would appreciate it. Thanks very much for your time. Be cool.